In the year 730,000 AD, humanity ruled the stars with an iron fist, until one day, a captain witnessed his fleet torn to shreds and realized the horrifying truth. Their galactic empire hung by a thread. Captain Thomas Clark stared out the viewport of his command ship, the UESS Indomitable, as it hurtled through hyperspace. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Graves. "Captain Clark, I have new orders from Earth's High Command. You are to lead your fleet to the Mazzari system immediately." Thomas frowned. "The Mazzari system? That's on the fringes of our territory. What's the situation, Admiral?" "Our intelligence networks report the Mazzarians are developing a powerful new weapon that could threaten our dominance in the galaxy. Your mission is to investigate and neutralize any potential threats to Earth's supremacy. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Thomas replied as the display winked out. He turned to his crew. "Helm, set course for Mazzari space, maximum velocity." As the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Mazzari space, alarms blared. "Multiple contacts!" shouted the sensor officer. "Mazzarian battlecruisers, bearing down on our position." The Mazzarian warships opened fire, lances of energy slicing through the human formation. Thomas barked orders as he maneuvered the fleet into a defensive screen. The human ships returned fire, their advanced weaponry carving into the Mazzarian vessels. But the Mazzarians fought with a ferocity and skill Thomas had never encountered before. Battlecruisers raked his ships with withering fire, dodging and weaving with uncanny precision. At the center of the alien formation, Thomas spotted a massive dreadnought, from which a blue-skinned figure glared at him from the bridge, the Mazzarian commander. After a brutal firefight, the aliens withdrew, leaving Thomas's fleet badly mauled. As damage reports flooded in, Thomas realized with a sinking feeling that this was no ordinary foe. The Mazzarians would be the greatest challenge humankind had ever faced. Earth's leaders were grim as Thomas made his report. "This Mazzarian weapon could undo centuries of human conquest," Admiral Graves declared. "We have no choice. To maintain our galactic empire, we must conquer the Mazzarians before they conquer us. Captain Clark, you are hereby promoted to Admiral. You will lead our forces in the coming war." As Thomas prepared Earth's war fleets, he learned a startling truth. The Mazzarians were once a peaceful race, but human atrocities generations ago had turned them against Earth. Part of Thomas questioned the morality of humanity's relentless expansion and brutal suppression of aliens. But he knew his duty. The human empire must survive, at any cost. The fate of humankind hung in the balance as Thomas readied for war. The encrypted transmission from John Reese flickered onto Thomas's private view screen. The agent's face was haggard, his voice tight with urgency. "Admiral, I've uncovered the true nature of the Mazzarians' secret weapon. It's not just a powerful new ship or gun. It's an AI, a superintelligence capable of commanding their entire fleet. Its strategies are beyond anything we've seen. A frontal assault on their homeworld is suicide." Thomas's blood ran cold at the revelation. An AI adversary could spell humanity's doom. "What do you suggest, Reese?" "I've learned the AI is being developed in a remote research facility. If you can take it out before it comes fully online, we might stand a chance." Thomas weighed the intel, his mind racing. Before he could respond, the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared. "Report!" Thomas barked. "Mazzarian ships, dozens of them!" the sensor officer cried. "They came out of nowhere." The view screen filled with sleek alien craft, weapons blazing. The human fleet reeled under the onslaught. Never-before-seen missiles and beam weapons tore through human shields and armor like paper. "It has to be the AI," Thomas realized grimly as ship after ship vanished in flames. "Reese is right. We have to destroy it." Gritting his teeth, Thomas rallied his battered fleet and issued new orders. Most of the armada, under Admiral Nasir, would launch an all-out diversionary attack on the Mazzarian homeworld. Meanwhile, Thomas would lead a covert strike team to eliminate the AI at its source. As the fleets diverged, the bridge crew of Nasir's flagship watched the Mazari homeworld grow in their view screen, a sapphire orb dripping with orbiting weapons platforms. "All ships, open fire!" Nasir commanded. A storm of missiles and energy beams erupted from the human fleet, met by a maelstrom of Mazarian fire. Ships on both sides crumpled and burned under the tremendous crossfire. Nasir grimaced as a railgun barrage pounded his shields. "Hold the line!" he ordered, as the Mazarian fleet swept forward to meet them, weapons resplendent. At their heart sailed a monstrous dreadnought, surely the command ship of the alien Supreme Commander. "The dreadnought is tearing us apart!" shouted the weapons officer over the din of battle. Nasir set his jaw. "Keep pressing the attack." "We must buy time for Admiral Clark," he thought. "The fate of humanity rests on this gambit." As the space battle raged, Thomas's stealth frigate knifed through the void, a lone shadow flitting between the stars. His team of hardened commandos stood ready, guns and faces grim. "Approaching target," the pilot reported. "Facility in visual range." The research base hung in space, a sprawling complex of domes and spires. Thomas felt a flicker of hope. If they could infiltrate it and neutralize the AI, humanity might yet prevail. The frigate glided into the base's hangar, eerily deserted. Thomas and his commandos stormed out, rifles ready, moving swiftly through dead, empty corridors. No scientists, no guards, no sign of the AI. Something was very wrong. A flickering hologram coalesced before them, the sneering visage of Supreme Commander Indus. "Foolish humans," the Mazarians sneered. "Did you really think we'd let our greatest weapon be so vulnerable? The AI core is not here. It is on our homeworld, shielded beneath 100 meters of neurosteel. This base was merely a lure." Thomas's heart plummeted as the terrible realization hit him. The hologram faded, replaced by a flashing countdown. The human strike team sprinted for their ship, barely leaping aboard before the research station exploded in a blinding flash, the shockwave hurling them tumbling through space. Regaining control, they sped desperately back to the Mazari system, only to be greeted by a scene of utter carnage. The once mighty human fleet drifted in ruins, gutted and broken before the Mazarian onslaught. Nasir's flagship burned, a dying hulk. "We've lost," Thomas whispered, numb with horror. The Indomitable's comm crackled. It was Admiral Nasir, badly wounded. "Sir, the Mazarians, the AI, it's too powerful. It's outthought us at every turn." Nasir coughed, his voice fading. "Earth has fallen silent. We're alone. We've lost everything." The transmission went dead. Thomas slumped in his seat, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. Humanity was finished, their empire in ashes, outmaneuvered and beaten by a ruthless alien intelligence. Indus's face filled the view screen, preening in triumph. "Surrender now, and I may spare your pathetic homeworld." Thomas's fists clenched. Earth still had one final recourse, one so terrible it had been forbidden for centuries. A planet-killer bomb, powerful enough to cleanse a world of all life. Using it would be an atrocity beyond imagining. But what choice remained? With no orders from Earth, the decision fell to him alone. Thomas's eyes fell to the innocuous panel concealing the planet killer's activation controls. The fate of humanity, the lives of billions of Mazari civilians, all in his hands. As the seconds ticked by, the path ahead remained shrouded in shadow, with no clear light to guide the way. Thomas Clark's hand hovered over the activation panel, fingers trembling. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on him. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and slammed his palm onto the console. "Fire the planet killers," he ordered, his voice hoarse. The bridge crew hesitated for a heartbeat before springing into action. Missile tubes slid open along the hulls of the surviving human warships. Massive tectonic destabilizers erupted from their housings, streaking towards the Mazarian homeworld in fiery arcs. On the planet's surface, Supreme Commander Indus stared at his command screens in disbelief. Proximity alarms blared as the missiles plummeted through the atmosphere. "Activate all planetary defenses," Indus shouted. "We must stop those warheads at all costs." The AI core hummed as it took control of the orbital defense grid. Lasers lashed out, vaporizing the first wave of missiles. But more kept coming. The AI's processors strained to track and intercept each incoming threat. Indus watched in horror as missile after missile slipped through the defensive net. They burrowed deep into the planet's crust, biting into fault lines and tectonic plates. The ground lurched violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across the landscape. Indus stumbled, grasping his command console for support as the floor bucked beneath him. "No," he whispered. The scene repeated itself across the planet. Cities crumbled, oceans boiled, continents split apart. The very foundations of the world shattered under the relentless assault. When the quaking finally subsided, the Mazarian homeworld was unrecognizable. A hellscape of ash and molten rock stretched as far as the eye could see. The quantum AI core lay in ruins, its incredible potential snuffed out in an instant. In the aftermath, Clark wasted no time. He rallied the battered human fleet, transmitting orders to every remaining ship. "All vessels, this is Admiral Clark. The Mazarian threat has been neutralized, but our work is not done. We will hunt down every last enemy warship and outpost. Leave no stone unturned." John Reese's face appeared on the main view screen. "Admiral, I've compiled a list of high-value Mazarian targets. Their leadership is in disarray. If we strike now, we can decapitate their entire command structure." Clark nodded grimly. "Transmit the data to our Special Forces teams. I want surgical strikes on every name on that list." Over the next year, human ships scoured the galaxy. Mazarian holdouts were rooted out and destroyed. Their refugees were hunted across star systems. Any world harboring Mazarian survivors faced brutal orbital bombardment. Earth's victory was total, absolute. The cost in lives and moral compromise was staggering, but humanity now stood unchallenged. On a secret base deep in unexplored space, Supreme Commander Indus nursed his wounds and seethed with hatred. He addressed the handful of survivors who had escaped with him. "The humans believe they have broken us," Indus growled. "But we will rise again. We will strike from the shadows, rebuild our strength, and one day make them pay for their crimes. This I swear." Back on Earth, Admiral Thomas Clark stood before cheering crowds. They hailed him as the savior of humanity, the man who had secured their galactic dominance. But as the adulation washed over him, Clark felt only a deep, gnawing emptiness. Later that night, alone in his quarters, he stared at his reflection. The face looking back seemed older, harder. He wondered if this was truly victory, or if humanity had lost something essential in the crucible of war. The ghosts of billions haunted his dreams, leaving him to question whether the price of empire was too high. 12 years passed since humanity's triumph over the Mazarians. Admiral Thomas Clark stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic star map. Red dots marked the locations of crushed Mazarian resistance cells. Only one remained, a flashing icon deep in uncharted space. "Sir, we've intercepted a transmission," his communications officer reported. "Origin, Galactic Void Region." Clark's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The scratchy audio filled the bridge. A familiar voice, one Clark hadn't heard in over a decade, spoke in hushed tones. Supreme Commander Indus lived. Intelligence reports flooded in. Indus had established a base on Ertha 117, a hellish world shrouded in radiation storms. For years, he'd rebuilt his forces in secret. Clark smacked his fist on the console. "Assemble the fleet. We end this now." The massive battlecruiser Oblivion led the armada into the inky blackness of the void. Days stretched into weeks as they pushed deeper into unmapped space. Finally, scout ships returned with coordinates. Clark's lips curled into a predatory grin. "All ships, battle stations, commence orbital bombardment." The human fleet erupted in fury. Missiles and energy beams rained down on Ertha 117, shattering Mazarian defenses. Fireballs bloomed across the planet's surface as munitions found their marks. "Ground assault deploy," Clark barked. Armored dropships screamed through the atmosphere. Marines in powered armor hit the ground running, plasma rifles blazing. Mazarian soldiers poured from underground bunkers, but they were outgunned and outmatched. Clark watched the battle unfold on tactical screens. Human mechs strode across the blasted landscape, crushing resistance with ease. Victory seemed assured. Suddenly, an incoming transmission cut through the din of battle. "Admiral Clark, this is John Reese." Clark's blood ran cold, his deep cover agent, missing for years, now a prisoner of Indus. "You have to get me out," Reese pleaded. "They're coming. I can't—" The transmission cut off abruptly. Before Clark could react, alarms blared across the oblivion. "Sir, energy spike detected," his science officer shouted. "It's their reactor core. If it blows, it'll irradiate the entire planet." Indus's face appeared on the main view screen, lips curled in a sneer. "Withdraw now, human, or I'll turn this world to ash. Your choice." Clark's fists clenched as he weighed his options. With a snarl of frustration, he gave the order to retreat. As the battered human fleet limped away from Earth-A-117, Clark deployed a network of stealth probes to keep watch. He'd lost this battle, but the war was just the beginning. Someday, Indus would make a mistake, and when he did, humanity would be waiting to end the Mazarian threat once and for all. The years crawled by like glaciers. Admiral Thomas Clark stood on the bridge of the Oblivion, his weathered face reflected in the viewport as he gazed at the toxic orb of Earth-A-117. Decades of constant vigilance had etched deep lines into his features. "Any activity, Lieutenant?" he asked, not for the first time. "Negative, sir. Same as yesterday, and the day before that, and the year before that." Clark nodded, a flicker of doubt crossing his mind. Could Indus truly be dead? Had their nemesis succumbed to the harsh conditions of his irradiated fortress? But then everything changed. "Sir, energy spike detected on the planet's surface." The sensor officer's voice crackled with excitement. "Multiple signatures. A whole fleet emerging." Clark snapped to attention, adrenaline surging through his aged body. "Battle stations. All ships, form up. This is not a drill." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity. Officers rushed to their posts, screens flickered to life, and the dull hum of the ship's engines rose to a thunderous roar. "Stealth bombers, commence attack run," Clark ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. He watched on the tactical display as the sleek black shapes of human bombers streaked towards the emerging Mazarian fleet. Brilliant flashes erupted across the screen as their payloads found their marks. Mazarian ships, caught unprepared, crumpled under the assault. But one vessel stood out, a massive flagship at the heart of the flotilla. Its shield snapped into place just in time, deflecting the human barrage. "Sir, the Mazarian flagship. It's powering up some kind of drive system." Clark leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Indus," he growled. The flagship shimmered, distorting space around it. In a heartbeat, it vanished. "Transwarp signature detected," an officer shouted. "They've jumped." Clark's fists clenched. "Plot their trajectory. All ships prepare for pursuit." The chase stretched on for months. Star systems blurred past as Clark's armada hounded the Mazarian remnant across the cosmic void. Ships on both sides fell to relentless barrages of weapons fire, their hulls torn open to the void. Clark stood at his post day after day, barely sleeping, driven by a singular purpose. His eyes burned from staring at sensor readouts, searching for any sign of Indus's crippled flagship. Finally, deep in an uncharted nebula, alarms blared. "Transwarp signature destabilizing," the helmsman reported. "They're dropping out of FTL." Clark allowed himself a grim smile. "Deploy the Apex cannons. End this." Massive weapon ports yawned open along the Oblivion's hull. Energy crackled and arced between massive conductors as the experimental weapons powered up. "Apex cannons charged, sir." Clark took a deep breath. "Fire!" Reality itself seemed to scream as the Apex cannons tore holes in the fabric of space-time. The exotic particles of the nebula reacted violently with the rifts, amplifying their destructive power. On the screen, Clark watched Indus's flagship twist and warp, stretched across multiple dimensions before disintegrating at a subatomic level. The rest of the Mazarian fleet suffered the same fate, erased from existence. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge. Then a cheer went up from the crew. After centuries of conflict, the Mazarian threat was finally, conclusively crushed. Clark sagged in his chair, feeling every one of his years. It was over. He could go home, retire a hero. "Sir!" The comms officer's voice cut through the celebration. "We're detecting encrypted transmissions. They're coming from the destroyed Mazarian ships." Clark's blood ran cold. "What?" "It looks like they've been transmitting data continuously during our pursuit. We're tracing the receiving end now." What followed was a nightmare. Clark's fleet followed the interstellar trail to a desolate region of space, hidden within a dark matter halo. What they found there chilled them to the bone. Hundreds of massive colony arcs hung silently in the void, each easily the size of a small moon. Scans revealed their cargo, thousands upon thousands of cryogenic pods, filled with Mazarian soldiers, zealots, and even human traitors. "My God," Clark whispered. "It was all a trap, a distraction." As they watched, the arcs began to move. Automated systems, triggered by Indus's final transmission, sent them scattering to the far corners of the galaxy. Clark's decimated fleet could do nothing but watch as the seeds of future conflict vanished into the depths of space. His final warning to Earth was cut short, jammed by the Ark's stealth fields. The old admiral slumped in his chair, the weight of failure crushing down on him. He had won the battle, but in doing so had ensured the war would rage on for generations to come. As the oblivion drifted in the silent void, Clark stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Mazarian threat lurked, waiting to resurface, and humanity would be waiting, ready to meet violence with violence, in an endless cycle of destruction. The universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.